going to go straight into our action meeting this morning. I see some guests here today. Welcome. So with that, going into the action meeting, we are going to open with public comment. If you wish to speak, do we have a sign up sheet? Nobody has signed up. Okay, no one has signed up, but if you wish to speak, you can approach the podium one at a time. Please state your name and where you're from, and you will be given 3 minutes to present your thoughts, concerns, issues to the board. And there'll be a timer that you can see very clearly behind me. And at the end of your presentation, I will tell you that something that is very hard for me, and I know those of you who know me believe this, we do not comment. We take in your positions and your thoughts, and we keep notes so that we can take action if necessary at a later time. But it is very challenging for me personally not to address you as you're at the podium. So with that, if there's a guest who would like to begin this morning, please come on up.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is the Reverend Delano Douglas. I serve as the director for the Wesley Foundation at Virginia State University, as well as an associate pastor of Ettrick United Methodist Church and chair of the Concerned Citizens of Ettrick. I am here just to speak on behalf of advocacy for the building of the new high-speed rail Amtrak station to be in the current site for the station, Ettrick, Virginia. One of the main reasons, and there are many that we could list, but one of the main reasons that I am really adamant about seeing that the new station remain in Ettrick is because of the access to education that it provides for hundreds of Virginia State University students. Its current location is a simple 4-minute walk from the university to the actual station. Seeing all of the research and studies that have been done that highlight Ettrick as a viable and in some cases prime location, we are really advocating for that. I noticed that the station, if it is relocated in Colonial Heights, will be about 1.5 miles from Interstate 95, and that's a great thing. However, that 1.5 miles difference between the proposed Colonial Heights site and the Ettrick site will mean the world to students who simply walk from the university to the station anytime they go home for vacation, anytime they go home because they're feeling homesick, anytime they need to get to their families due to illnesses. And so the additional measure of getting to the station that a relocation in Colonial Heights would mean for students would have a tremendous impact on the Virginia State University student population that quite honestly will not be positive. And I wanted to really highlight that. And the other thing that I would like to do, I have a colleague that is going to share. We've had an opportunity over the course of the past 3 years to advocate for our position, including letters from President of Virginia State University, Dr. Makola Abdullah, a letter that I penned on behalf of the Concerned Citizens of Ettrick, as well as Congressman Donald McEachin, Delegate LaSharice Aird, Virginia Senator Jennifer McClellan, and as well as the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors. So I'm very thankful for this opportunity to speak, and please ask that if there's any way that we could be connected with persons at the federal level to share some of these concerns in person, as we've done with you today, we would greatly appreciate facilitation of that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. If you do have some documents or letters that you would like to leave with us, you can leave it with Mr. Johnson over here, and he'll make sure to get it to us.
I'd be able to leave them electronically? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, if you leave it electronically, I'm going to give you another email address. Perhaps you could leave it on the card. We'll get it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Marie Stella. I'm also with the Friends of Ettrick, and I'm a resident of Chesterfield County. I am trained to do volunteer in all the communities in the Tri-City areas through VSU, which has a wonderful adult training program, is committed to its communities, and we're building all around the community, which will make access from up and down Virginia to this important state university, land-grant university, African-American based university. I'm here because I have been calling numerous people. Mr. Hyder at the Crater have gotten no response. Mr. Winkler at the Federal Rail, who told me yesterday that we have only one option. They will be making a decision basically for Colonial Heights, and the only option we have then is to file a lawsuit. I was lucky enough to call your office, talk to Ms. Stock, who suggested that maybe we come here. So I want to very quickly tell you what we are requesting. We're requesting to open up the comment period again for an additional 60 days. We're also asking not for some town hall meeting where everyone tells us, don't worry, it's okay, and they don't even come, they send their contractors, but we're asking for the meeting with the affected partners, which would be FRA, you, the community in Colonial Heights and Chesterfield, so we can talk about, we can present to you the errors in the NEPA study, because it seems no one's interested in looking about the errors and misrepresentation of the study, especially how it relates to the environment issues, costs, and some elusive thing called walkability when in the depths of the actual report, when you get away from the executive summary, you find there's all issues that have just been, we'll fix it, we'll do it in the future, we'll figure it out later, we'll study it later, and it doesn't reflect in the overall executive summary what the issues are. So we're asking that we be able to present to you and to the other parties what the issues are. We also want to see a cost analysis for the train stations. There's some high level, 7 to 9, 12 to 15 or something, yet you have to build an elevator, raise the station 15 feet in Colonial Heights. You have it, and the executive study doesn't show it, but the whole area is on a floodplain that will interfere with Old Town Creek. It's 0.3% is on a wetlands, and they're actually talking that they need more land, and that isn't even in the NEPA study identified where the land is, or what the conditions of that situation is on the other side of 95. Anybody who's gone in that area knows specifically that it's flooded area. So I'm reaching the end of my time. We would love to come here again if you would give us the opportunity to present to you a detailed analysis of the NEPA study, and to see if you would help us set up an appointment at all interested parties. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I didn't realize an alarm was going to go off. But thank you for being here. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Good morning.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Tina McCrae, and I'm a member of the Concerned Citizens of Ettrick. I've been living in Ettrick for about 30 years, and it's a beloved village. And I don't think that people have really looked at the impact it would have on our community. There's been a lot of studies done with all kind of analysis, but the finding of the need to make the importance of what impact it would have on our community. We have two special assets in the community of Ettrick. That is the Ettrick train station in Virginia State. And we have done cooperative things with Chesterfield County to bridge those two things together. And if they pull the train station from the village of Ettrick, it would be a major impact to our community. And no one has done a person-to-person comment with some of the citizens to find out how it would affect them. And I would like to know if we could actually get the federal rails to meet with us. If not, we go to them, or either personally do some form of town hall to justify why the train station have to be relocated out of our village. and thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you, Ms. McCray. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing your comments with us. And with that, we will move into our action meeting, and we will approve the minutes, which I've never done in the right order before, so. Yeah, let's go ahead and approve the minutes more. Okay, with that, do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Ms. Mitchell, would you like to?
Sure, and for the members from the Ettrick community that are still here, I do want to take, just for the board's background as well, the study that they're referring to was actually being led by the Tri-Cities MPO and with the Federal Railroad Administration. DRPT is I guess, a consulting partner, a participating agency in that as a stakeholder. We did send a letter to the Federal Railroad Administration last year supporting the location in Ettrick for the reasons, many of the reasons that were mentioned here, that we preferred a location, the existing location, its ties to the community, the ties to its university, the ridership base. The Federal Railroad Administration did recommend instead an alternative at Colonial Heights. One of the reasons they cited is because it has better vehicular access. There is no final decision that's been made yet. It is we expect that they could take action sometime later this summer, but there may still be an opportunity for us to weigh in on that again. I would like very much to meet with you and talk with you and find out how we can help support you and help perhaps with some outreach to FRA before any final decision is made. Because, like I said, it is something that the MPO, because they were leading the study, they declined to actually make any recommendation at all, which I guess really kind of left FRA in the position of having the sole recommendation for that. But anyway, we can get, I see our Chief of Rail, Mike McLaughlin, in the background, and he can get your all's contact information, but we would like to talk with you some more about that. So, sure.
Thank you. Mr. Bronco Vlasic. Bronco, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Secretary Valentine, Commissioners, and CTB board members, good morning. I have two decision briefings before you today. The first one is from the Amherst County Board of Supervisors, Lynchburg District. Commemorative naming of the bridge on US Route 60 Lexington Turnpike over the Pedlar River, Amherst County, as the James Bernard Knoll Bridge. The Amherst County Board of Supervisors is requesting that the CTB honor and commemorate the life, service, and ultimate sacrifice of Corporal James Bernard Knoll, who was killed in action during the Korean War. James Bernard Knoll was born and raised on Tobacco Mountain Field. He served in the 23rd Infantry Regiment. He was captured by the North Korean Army and taken as a prisoner of war while running communication lines. Corporal Knoll was killed in action on September 4, 1950, at the Battle of Naekong Bulge in South Korea. Corporal Knoll was awarded the Purple Heart and a Bronze Medal of Valor for demonstrated heroism in ground combat. VDOT supports this request, and we request your support also.
All those in favor, please stand.
Aye.
Briefing number 2 is from the James City County Board of Supervisors, Hampton Road District. Commemorative naming of State Route 60, Pocahontas Trail, from State Route 199 to the Williamsburg city limits in James City County as the Judge William T. Stone Memorial Highway. the James City County Board of Supervisors is requesting that the CTB honor and memorialize the life of Judge William T. Stone. Judge Stone was the first African-American judge in Williamsburg and believed to be the first African-American judge in Virginia. Judge Stone was a founding member of the Zeta Mu Mu chapter of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity in Williamsburg, where he was also a Mason and an Elk. He was the first African-American to establish a law practice in the city of Williamsburg, which also became the first integrated law firm partnership in the city. Judge Stone remained a substitute judge for over 30 years. VDOT supports this request, and we also request your support.
Option.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Mr. Hofrichter, good morning.
Morning, Secretary Valentine, members of the board. I bring before you a resolution to make changes to your rules on parking lots and environs and our land use permit regulations so that we can allow mobile food vending in commuter lots in Planning District 8, which is essentially Northern Virginia District. We have done a presentation on this before for the board several months ago. In terms of where we're headed, we have had discussions since then with certain members of the board regarding certain items in the regulations or proposed regulations. And we have distributed those to industry, and we're ready to move forward.
Had your concerns addressed and
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Secretary.
My question would be, why just limit it to 8? Why wouldn't we have that anywhere?
Because that's what the law said. It was written, it was passed in
This is something
2016.
sent from the legislature?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There'll be an amendment to that every year.
any further comment? Do I have a motion? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Who knew we would get here? Ms. Price, good morning.
Morning, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I have 2 items for you today. The first is our routine monthly transfers from completed projects to scheduled projects, and I recommend your approval.
Well,
Second.
further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
The second item I have for you today is approval of the fiscal year 2019 to 2024 6-year improvement program. You were briefed on this yesterday, and I recommend your approval.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Brule, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Item 6 is action on the approval of the Transform I-66 Inside the Beltway Multimodal Program components. If you'll remember, Kate Mattice, Executive Director of NVTC, and I gave you a presentation on this in Bristol last month. With me here today is Patricia Happ, who's the Program Manager with NVTC for that program. DRPT has been involved in the program and in the project and then through the process, and as such, we have a resolution before you today recommending your approval of the program of projects selected by NVTC.
Before we vote on this, I did want to let the board know that I have received a letter from Delegate Dave LaRock expressing concern about 2 of the projects in the list from NVTC. And he writes that the funds from the I-66 toll revenue is to benefit toll payers through the Commuter Choice Program to move people, enhance connectivity, improve transit service, reduce congestion, and increase travel options. He brings up 2 of the projects because of a very low score, and I wanted the MVTC to have an opportunity to address this. I assured Delegate LaRock that I would let you all know of his concerns about this, and just thought you might want a deeper explanation about how and why these two projects were included. And so today we have Patricia Happ with us from MVTC, so welcome.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the question. That's a great question. The Commission felt that the incident response projects could benefit the corridor and that they could provide benefits to toll payers and drivers of the corridor at a low cost. And at the same time, they recognize that the scoring process doesn't currently attribute value to certain types of projects. And so the Commission has asked that NVTC come back and reevaluate the scoring process, which we plan to do in the next several months.
So do you have, your scoring process right now does not capture what? As you're going through your program?
Incident response projects.
And so in the future, you are going to try to incorporate the benefits from that into the model?
Yeah, we want to make sure that projects that benefit the corridor, benefit toll payers, will be adequately recognized.
Director Mitchell?
It's the, and I apologize, I'm pulling up the list of projects right now on my iPad. I think the two that he mentioned were the incident response and I think there was another.
I only have the scores.
I-66 Corridor Intelligent Transportation System Enhancements and Traffic Management Center.
So the current methodology places a very high emphasis on person throughput, which, is, as you all know, is really one of the very stated objectives of the I-66 program. However, these types of projects, while they have significant benefits to the toll payers, do not necessarily get reflected through person throughput as a measure of that. And so there was an extensive discussion of this at the NVTC board meeting. Delegate LaRocque was there. He raised these concerns at the time. The board discussed this and still felt that these projects offer significant benefits to the toll payers and were an appropriate use of funding from the I-66 toll revenues. And they did vote to approve the program of projects with these projects in it.
And so do you have an amendment to the resolution?
Actually, the resolution itself does include, we included two statements that acknowledge the fact that two projects did not score very well, but that NVTC would be reviewing their methodology going forward.
Do you have that language?
I do. It is on the second page, about a little over halfway down. The first clause reads, whereas some components did not score well based on NVTC's current process, but have been determined to have widespread benefits to both automobile and transit users in the corridor, and whereas NVTC will be reevaluating their project evaluation and scoring process to ensure that diverse projects with significant benefits to the corridor can be considered equally. So those two clauses were added to address the concerns about those two projects.
So I wanted to make sure there were 15 projects that you were briefed on at our last meeting. Whether or not this board felt that we should go ahead and move forward and approve all 15, or based on the fact that they're going to be addressing this, would you prefer to approve the 13 projects and then perhaps for these two to be rescored?
If we just had just a teeny bit more information about what the two projects are, they sound something to me like should be included. I mean, obviously we would have set up a scoring mechanism, but that doesn't mean it's not really important.
I'd be happy to read the project descriptions. I just have a brief blurb on each one. So for the I-66 Corridor Intelligent Transportation System Enhancements, a rapid response to traffic incidents on the I-66 corridor will minimize backups and enable Arlington County to alert commuters about resulting delays. This project will fund enhancements to the county's intelligent transportation system to reduce gaps in monitoring coverage, strengthen real-time solution awareness in the corridor, and allow for the sharing of information with commuters, VDOT, and local law enforcement, as well as emergency personnel.
I would
Okay, and then the next one is Traffic Management Center to make optimal use of its intelligent transportation system, which minimizes backups in the I-66 corridor by allowing for a rapid response in travel incidents. Arlington County needs to staff its Traffic Management Center during business hours. This project will fund additional staffing to help the county centralize traffic data from field devices, evaluate the data to improve operations, and better coordinate with partner agencies such as VDOT and first responders.
What's the price tag?
100,000.
How much?
100,000, I think, for both of those.
Each project is $400,000.
Certainly go along with leaving that in also.
Secretary, I'd agree. I'd leave both of them in. I would keep them in.
So do I have a motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll just say that we would look forward to seeing the new scoring and perhaps how they would score under, a revised criteria, so that we can confirm that indeed we are supporting your efforts in choosing the best projects possible. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much, and thanks for coming. I appreciate that. Ms. Farmer, good morning.
Morning. I'm here today to present the resolution for authorizing the issuance and sale of revenue refunding bonds. Last month, when you were away in Bristol District, John discussed this option with you as a presentation. We have a standing shelf resolution to allow VDOT staff move forward on your behalf, working through the process. Obviously, these opportunities are few and far between these days, but we would like to have this in place in case the situation arises in the future. And this authorization would expire about 2 years from now. Any questions?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are you back up here again?
I'm here with Steve Pittard on behalf of both agencies to request the approval of the fiscal year 19 budgets for the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, for VDOT, and for DRPT.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That was very efficient. Ms. Brown. Good morning.
Madam Chairman, members of the board. I do have the next 7 agenda items for your approval today. Action item number 9 is a request for action on the FY19, FY20 revenue sharing allocations. Yesterday, I provided a high-level summary of the recommendations for funding this year based on priority tiers established for the program. The recommended list of project allocations is noted in your packet as attachment A. We request your approval of the list of revenue sharing project selections for this 2-year cycle.
Moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Katzberg? Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Okay, action item number 10 is a request for action on the FY19, FY20 transportation alternative allocations. Yesterday, I provided a high-level summary of the recommendations for funding after the district CTB members, at-large CTB members, the secretary, and the MPO made their selections. The recommended list of project selections is noted on attachment A. We request your approval of the list of transportation alternative project selections.
So moved.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Action item number 11 is a request for action on Arlington and Henrico Counties' maintenance payments for FY19. The payment rates are established in the Code of Virginia for each county. Each year, the program budget is increased based on the same growth rate that VDOT uses for its maintenance program. After factoring in the mileage adjustments for each year, the board establishes the new annual maintenance payment rate. Yesterday, I presented information on the new payment rates for FY19. We request your approval of this year's payment rates.
Madam Chair.
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Action item number 12 is a request for action on the payments to urban localities for maintenance of qualifying streets for FY19. Again, the payment rates for the urban localities are set in the code. Each year, the board does approve a new rate based on mileage adjustments and the growth factor. Yesterday, I presented information on the new payment rates for FY19. We request your approval of this year's maintenance payment rates for urban localities.
Aye.
Okay. Action item number 13 is a request for economic development access funds. This request was submitted by Franklin County, which is located in the Salem district. The proposed project will provide access to proposed development in the current Summit View Business Park. The county is planning to develop 2 parcels totaling 124.6 acres, which is currently served by Pleasant Breeze roadway, a roadway that is not adequate for heavy commercial traffic. In June 2017, the CTB approved Franklin County's first economic development access allocation to Summit View Business Park, which was contingent upon the county committing to utilizing alternative intersection design to provide the initial access to the business park without signalization of US Highway 220. This was requested by VDOT since Route 220 had been identified as one of the statewide routes that was being prioritized for mobility preservation. This commitment did not prohibit the use of traditional signalization for the long-term access for the park. Franklin County has worked in partnership with the VDOT Salem District Office and VDOT's statewide planning section to develop a coordinated plan of access on Route 220 for the business park that includes alternative intersection design with a synchronized 2-phase signalization when warranted. This plan of access is anticipated to meet the immediate and long-term access needs of the park while preserving the operational capacity on US Route 220 without traditional signalization. The county has submitted another letter committing to this coordinated plan of access that supersedes and replaces the original commitments to simply avoid traditional signalization as long as possible. The county's allocation will still be contingent upon meeting this alternative intersection design commitment. The project is estimated to cost the county approximately $1.6 million. Salem District has concurred in this estimate and the recommended allocation of $650,000. That's $500,000 unmatched and $150,000 that would be matched for the access road construction. This project will be administered by the locality. We have consulted with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and the staff has supported this project. We request your approval of this request for $650,000 in economic development access road funds.
So moved.
Madam Secretary. A question, and I ask this question because there is another motion coming up that affects a similar request in my district, recognizing that we have the responsibility to oversee and allocate this economic development money just like we do with rail access. With the rail access, we do have a scoring procedure. Is there any kind of a scoring procedure that we use for economic access?
Essentially, the Economic Development Access Program is intended to increase economic development and investment in that locality. So the localities that receive funding are receiving funding on a 5-to-1 basis, indicate they can get $1 of roadway funding for each $5 of investment. All 3 projects that are being presented today are bonded projects, which we've talked about a fair amount in the past, which means that they must attract businesses that are qualifying, that have sufficient investment to offset the access road costs, and if not, they would have to pay those funds back to us.
How do we measure that efficient or sufficient sufficiency? How do we measure that?
Essentially, if they do not already have a business in place that can document the investment prior to the allocation, they must place a bond with VDOT, and that bond guarantees that VDOT would have their money paid back if they do not provide that investment. They have a 5-year period, and they must submit certain documents to show us the investment before we will release their bond.
Okay, that's what I was asking. I didn't realize that.
Follow-up, how many times do we actually make them forfeit the bond?
There have been many times over history.
I'm talking about recent.
Well, we currently are under a moratorium that was imposed by the General Assembly. And so there will be no bond recalls for the next year and a half, 2 years. We have been working with Virginia Economic Development Partnership to put together some information for the board, and probably in one of the next board meetings, I'll provide some information. One of the things that we look at, have they met AIR program requirements, which is that 5-to-1 investment. And in many cases, we've had localities that had to pay us back because they did not meet AIR program requirements, but we have not typically measured what happens after that. And so I had mentioned that we were going to work with VEDP, and we have gathered that data, and I think that the results would be quite remarkable, that in many cases, even when the locality had to pay us money back, they ended up attracting significant investment, millions and millions. And so I'd be happy to bring back and kind of show you what the history has been for even those projects that had to pay us those monies back.
I'm so glad Julie is consulting with VDEP. I mean, there's a nexus there that I understand. I don't understand us doing it, but I like them being involved. It'd be great if one of their staff members would come to one of our meetings and say, okay, when they call us and ask us, this is what we do. Or do they just pick it up and say, well, that's a great idea, maybe they'll get something. I don't know what they do. It'd be nice if they actually physically do some sort of evaluation that there's a high probability or a probability. I mean, if I'm a local government official, I don't want to give VDOT a bond that guarantees me paying them back for a road to nowhere, if that's what it ends up being, which is what this program rules are. So I think it'd be helpful to have somebody come in and say, oh yeah, we do this.
I'd be happy
when we're contacted.
If the board would like for me to present the information that we have about our past history, I'd be happy to ask VDP if they'd like to also participate in that. I can tell you that when we've talked to them in the past, we do let them know when we have projects that are at risk, that are in the bonded period, and they have told us that they've been very active in working with those localities to market those sites, because just like us, they want those sites to be successful.
I know that the Rail Industrial Access Program has been coordinating with VEDP very closely in recent months. A lot of our incentive programs are all being reviewed. So I think that a really good time to do that is when you go through your analysis to perhaps have that presentation at the same time. So yes, great idea.
You know, my problem's not with what Ms. Brown brings before us. It's that
Certainly.
we do it at all. It's my problem. I just don't think we're the right agency. It has nothing to do with Ms. Brown's great work.
You bring such consistency to the board, Mr. Williams, and we appreciate it. So, do we have a motion? Oh.
Not going to wax philosophical like Senator Williams. I'm going to talk more specifically. I want to make sure that this is clear based on the rescinded letter and commitment to my board members, not so much because I don't think you'll support this, because I'm sure everyone knows how critical this is to a rural county in Southwest Virginia, but to make sure it's clear so that as the county and VDOT staff in Salem move forward, the initial commitment here was to do an alternate intersection, R-cut, something to that effect, as opposed to signalization. That has been rescinded, and VDOT Salem staff, who've been phenomenal in working with the county, have come up with a plan to put two-phase signals on the corridor, which, while none of us want to see new signals on a important corridor, will not decrease efficiency in the corridor at all. In fact, there's a signal south of the proposed two new signals that is a four-phase signal that's really the signal that's causing the problems in the corridor. And the county is committed to putting in a smart scale application through the PDC to try to get that funded to change it from a four-phase signal to a two-phase signal, thereby increasing efficiency regardless of the development of the park. So I do want to make it clear, just for the record, that the R-cut, the alternative intersection design, is not part of this, that the county can move forward with VDOT to put in two-phase signals as soon as necessary. So, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question then? Because we have if I'm looking at this correctly, Exhibit B, which is still attached to this, shows the R-cut, unless I'm reading it wrong.
There are two-phase signals.
Okay, I'm reading it wrong. Thank you.
I want it on the record to make clear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that, that initially when I learned about the two signals, two-phased two signals, I was concerned because of access management along the corridor, and the district engineer in Salem, Ken King, actually showed me how the traffic flow would continue to move through the corridor, and actually did an excellent job of convincing me as well. So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay.
Everything in the Richmond district, I'm voting no on from now on.
Action item number 14 is a request for economic...
He's at large. Hey, I voted for you, okay?
Everything urban.
Is another request for economic development access funds. This request was submitted by Rockingham County and located in the Stanton District. This project will provide access to new development in Shenandoah Valley Industrial Park South, Phase 1. The county is planning to develop 275 acres, which currently does not have public road access. The project is estimated to cost the county approximately $1.5 million. Stanton District has concurred in the estimate, and the recommended allocation of $650,000, which again, $500,000 unmatched, $150 matched for road construction. The project will be administered by the locality. Again, we have consulted with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership staff, and they have supported the county's plans to attract qualifying businesses to the site. We request your approval of this request for $650,000 in economic development access funds.
Make this motion, and this was the genesis of my question, really regarding this project as to how we weighted it or how we made decisions other than somebody else's recommendation. I make the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
It's a pretty expensive road for a 12-acre site, but that's all right. I'm sure it's not going to change anyone's opinion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Action item number 15 is another request for economic development access funds. This request was submitted by Spotsylvania County and located in the Fredericksburg District. The proposed project will provide access to new development on Holiday property. The county is planning to develop 48 acres, which currently does not have public road access. Estimated cost of the project is $854,000. Fredericksburg District has concurred in the estimate and an allocation of $650,000, again $500,000 unmatched for road construction. Project will be administered by the locality, and we have again consulted with Virginia Economic Development Partnership. We request your approval of $650,000 for the Economic Development Access Funds for this project.
Move to table. I need some more information on it.
I'll second that.
And I would just make one comment. One of the reasons that we probably have more projects this month than we typically see is that localities are limited in each fiscal year to a maximum of $650,000. So if a locality has a project that's ready to go forward, if they wait a month, it will mean that they have then exhausted their ability to use the program for another whole year.
Should have
And I
brought it
just
to
wanted
sooner.
you.
They should have brought it sooner.
So.
Madam Secretary, and I respect your motion on that, because I think we need, in our process, I really didn't know much about my own. And I think we are the ones that are we in our own district are the ones that are expected to present and defend and discuss. And I think the process certainly ought to include a fairly detailed briefing of the member of that district before it comes to this table.
In that motion, too.
We table the other two till we get this sorted out.
No.
I know at least one of them has had extensive discussion, so I do know that.
I knew nothing about mine until I read it in this.
Yes.
You know,
So,
if it's that important to a county, and they can't wait, and they have to wait to the last minute, they can issue their own bonds. They can do it themselves.
There is a motion and a second on the, to table this motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Madam Secretary, the conversation about preservation of the corridors has come up today, and I was on that committee with Mr. Fralin before he left, and I think that work is still going forward. The board has not formally accepted that, and I'm just sort of putting a pin in it here today verbally to say I think it really does need to come back to the board, that it has utility across the Commonwealth, not only in these instances, but in other things that we're dealing with in my district and in other people's districts. So I'd encourage us to get that.
Something that I check on regularly, and it's not quite ready to present to the board yet. But yes, work is continuing on it.
That's great. Thank you very much.
With that, we will move into new business. I think we have a few items under new business. One is, I'm looking for Deputy Secretary Donahue. As he stepped out of the room, although he knows the new news. But I did want to announce to the entire board that Miles Barnhart Donahue is here. Yes.
Why are you here? Why are you here?
That's a great question.
I will say, Mr. Donahue, you look incredibly well rested this morning.
7 full hours last night.
So Barney is now a member of our family, and so just on behalf of everybody, just how thrilled and happy. I know that you and I are taking off for DC, and part of getting me to leave so early this morning to do this was he dangled the possibility of my being able to meet Barney Donahue. So I kind of bought into the whole deal. With that, Mr. Whitworth, did you have any new business this morning?
I do, Madam Secretary, and I've come not to bury Caesar, but to praise him. Whereas F. Gary Grunitzky served on the Commonwealth Transportation Board from 2010 to 2018, having been appointed to serve on the board by Governor Robert F. McDonnell, and subsequently reappointed by Governor Terry McAuliffe, and serving as at-large urban member from 2010 to 2012, as a member representing the Northern Virginia Construction District from 2012 to 2016, and again an at-large urban member from 2016 to 2018. And whereas Mr. Grzinski brought to his tenure on the board a documented and diverse record of achievement and leadership in the private sector, both in housing and in the banking industry. And whereas Mr. Grzinski, in his public sector experience, has diligently served the Commonwealth, not only in his service on the Commonwealth Transportation Board, but also in other key roles, including an appointment to the Virginia Housing Commission from 2012 to 2010, and as a member of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority representing the Commonwealth Transportation Board. And whereas Mr. Grzinski's service in the public sector has also extended to the local level and includes his service as a member of the Prince William County Economic Development Task Force from 2009 to 2010, and service on the Board of Directors for the Hilton Performing Arts Center. And whereas Mr. Kaczynski's dedication to transportation in the Commonwealth has reflected not only in his service on the board, but also in his prior role as president of the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance and his service on the board of directors for the Washington Airports Task Force. And whereas Mr. Kaczynski's in fulfilling his duties with this board, both as a member and vice chairman, has demonstrated leadership, dedication, and forthrightness and commitment, earning the respect and admiration of his colleagues and the staff at the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. And whereas the board wishes to express its appreciation to Mr. Kaczynski for his years of service to the Commonwealth, now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the current board extend to Mr. Kaczynski their highest commendation and appreciation for his years of outstanding service on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth as a member and vice chairman of the board, and express their best wishes to him. I therefore make this motion.
Second.
All those in favor, please join me in standing and acknowledging such a great work. Before you say anything, y'all can be seated. This is something from the board to you. I remember everything.
It's the seal of the Commonwealth.
Oh.
And I told Carol when I go out here, I must have said it a couple of years ago, I want one of those. That goes in your cardboard.
So he now has the official seal, and this one, bring this up too. Yes, yes. We could just perhaps set it here, but we wanted you to have your own personal map of Virginia, and so we have markers up here for the board to sign.
Thank you.
And just thank you again. As I said to him last night, he has been a great personal friend and a great colleague on the board. So many of the transformations that we have felt over these past years is in large part to this board and to your leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I know the secretary has to go very quickly. I'll just say that it's been a privilege to serve the Commonwealth on the Commonwealth Transportation Board. As I told some of you last night, I was fortunate enough to bear witness to and work on the implementation of some major transportation milestones. When you think back to Governor McDonald with the transportation funding legislation, when we think back to the smart scale that Governor McAuliffe brought all of us to, and more recently the metro funding under Governor Northam, those were fairly significant in terms of the history of the Commonwealth's transportation efforts. Coupled with that, I had the opportunity on the road trips to really witness personally the diversity of geography and community that makes up our Commonwealth, and it's pretty spectacular. Beside that, I had the opportunity to work with this board over the years and some of the people who have passed through as well, and it's always been my experience that it's been a collegial board, one of camaraderie and goodwill, always with the best efforts put forth to move transportation in the Commonwealth. I hope as I depart that that will continue as a new board takes shape next month. Every board has its own personality, and I'm sure that one will. I know one of the two members coming on, and I know he'll bring his experience and stimulation to this board, my old friend, Mr. Miller. So with that, I'll go back to paraphrasing General MacArthur and say, old CT beers never die. They find the express lanes and speed on out of here. Thank you.
Excellent. So any other new business? Ms. Hines?
Madam Chair, we will be in Alexandria in July, and we are going to be at a hotel that is right across the street from the Amtrak station. And so we wanted to kind of take the temperature of the board and encourage people who can to consider taking the train to come to the meeting and have that experience, since we've been doing so much conversation about railroad and DC to RVA and all that, have a chance to ride on some of that. So I'm going to be working with Carol to sort of set the time of the meeting so that if people want to take the train, it's possible. And it may be that it'll make more sense to have committee meetings be on Wednesday in order to facilitate people leaving in an expeditious manner. So we're working on all of that.
And my staff can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we do have access to discounts as staff discounts on Amtrak, which I believe we could probably extend to the board members should you decide to do that.
So it might be that those reservations will be made through Carol in order to do that. But I wanted everybody to sort of be on notice and think about that and Carol and I'll be looking at the schedules. And I'm working on what I hope is going to be a fun evening. So we shall see. We'll miss Gary. He won't be with us. He's going to the All-Star game.
Lobby to have him host us.
I know. Oh, for sure, Marty. Anyway, I think it'll be fun and be a little bit different. So,
thank you so much to you and Scott, and we'll look forward to being in Northern Virginia next month. Any other new business? Okay, now I just want to prepare you. I'm going to adjourn the action meeting, but we do need to return. We just suspended the working session because there are 2 items we need to complete this morning. So didn't want y'all to jump up. We're adjourning the action meeting, and we are now going to resume the workshop. And so I know that we have we have a rail industrial access program so Jeremy Latimer, would you mind coming forward?
Okay, where do I get?
It's not as much fun doing it in this order, I will say. But we're always happy to see you, Mr. Latimer. How are you?
Great, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Secretary and members of the board. We have just one rail industrial access application for your consideration. We will come back next month for action. This is an application from a new company in Waverly, Virginia called Superb Solutions for You. They are a startup company that will create the chemicals for treating reclaimed water. The new facilities, actually, they're purchasing an existing facility and rehabilitating it, including the track at the facility. Here we go, that PowerPoint is now up, so I'm going to skip ahead. There we go. Not sure which direction I need to point this to get it to move. There we go. Okay, so the existing facility, they will be rehabilitating track. They will be operating 260 carloads out of this new facility. Their total capital investment is $2.3 million. Their request for rail eligible reimbursement grant funds is $230,000. The new facility will bring 25 jobs to Waverly. 55% of the inbound and outbound traffic will be shipped by rail. The application scored 60 of 100 points. Based on the other public benefits, they will only be required to meet the minimum threshold of operating at least 10 new carloads a year, and staff does recommend approval. Sorry, I'm going to take that back because you'll vote next month. So anyway.
Yes. So you're just presenting this to us today so that we can vote next month. So any questions, thoughts, concerns? Mr. Connor.
I just have a comment is technology and innovation is we look for ways to distribute goods through a variety of ways. Are these things being built to accommodate the future, like drones and stuff like that? And can we start at least thinking about that in these?
Are they being built to
accommodate future delivery methods? How can it just be trucks and rail?
I don't believe for this particular company because it's dealing in chemicals, but.
Oh, but just.
But yes, in theory, yes.
In theory, in a broad concept.
We haven't really considered that actually as part of our evaluation process at this point.
It's not something that we look at currently in our evaluation process, but certainly as applications come forward, if there is something that we believe, we could look at that. If there is something that we believe would be obsolete in the future, we would take that into consideration.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
Any other comments? All right, Mr. Landworth, thank you so much.
Thank
Mr. Donahue, is there something you could give us an update on? I've already received a message from you, but I think I'm supposed to be in the car, but.
We have about 10 minutes.
Okay, there you go.
But Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm here just to give a quick update on some legislative items. As you know, we typically complete those briefings in March and April, but this year the budget was not approved and a special session was reconvened. Many of the items that were discussed and the reason for it were not related to transportation. However, there were some items that were included in the final approved budget, which was signed by the governor a few weeks ago, that do have implications for this board that I did want to walk through and make sure that you're aware of, as you'll be seeing presentations from the staffs in the coming months related to these items. The first deals with special structures, which is really talking about large and complex bridges, tunnels, and movable bridges and things of that nature. In the presentation yesterday that the Commissioner Garrett and other staff gave to you about pavements and bridges, there was a slide that talked about these special structures. These are really large projects that have cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars that under the current State of Good Repair program, there is a legal provision that would allow you to waive the funding formula and use large sums of money in a given year for these projects. But some of these actually exceed the amount of money that's even available in a given year. And so these are things like the Norris Bridge, which I know Mr. Connors and Mr. Whitworth, we've had numerous discussions about. It includes the Big Walker Tunnel and other things in the Bristol District, Gwynn's Island movable bridge, also in the Fredericksburg District. And so there's a host of these structures, and VDOT anticipates that over the next 30 years, they'll need to spend in 2017 dollars somewhere in excess of $2 billion to address these projects. And so the General Assembly has really said, you need to start planning today for when this work is going to take place. And so they've asked us to identify potential solutions and recommendations for how these big ticket rehabilitation, replacement, and reconstruction of bridges and tunnels can take place in the coming years. And so the Commissioner, working with other staff, is going to be looking at ways where, using the resources we have, we can find ways to try and fund these. And so that could involve sinking funds. It could involve changing the percentages of State of Good Repair versus Smart Scale and other things of that nature. But I did want to let you know that is a report the Assembly has required us to complete prior to them reconvening next January. In addition to that, there's three other things that I think are important for the board that were included in the budget. One deals with the Hampton Roads region, Mr. Malvin. There is a provision saying that should the Commonwealth Transportation Board move forward with monetizing the Hampton Roads Express Lanes network, that it's the intent of the General Assembly that revenues from the express lanes between 664 and the 64 split over to 564 be used to help pay for the construction of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel replacement. So I think in all the discussions that we've had with you all and with the region, that has been kind of the understanding moving forward. There was some concern in the region that we needed something to be more formally memorialize that, and so there was language included in the budget to that end. One other item is there is a requirement for Ms. Mitchell to explore a master equipment lease program to see if there are opportunities with that to reduce to offset, the impact of the transit fiscal cliff, which will be coming in the next 2 fiscal years. And the concept really there is, are there opportunities that don't involve 20 and 25-year debt, with really kind of bundled bus purchases and shorter term debt that might actually offset the transit capital needs. And so that's something that DRPT is required to explore with the Treasury Department prior to next January when the General Assembly comes back. And then the final item actually deals with the membership of many of the regional transportation entities. that exist within the Commonwealth, and so there was a provision in the additional enactments section of the budget that rewrote several sections of code dealing with the membership of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, the Potomac-Rappahannock Transportation Commission, the Hampton Roads Transportation District, and the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, where today each of those commissions and authorities have appointments from the House and Senate. Today, those members are required to be actual members of either the House or the Senate. These changes would allow the members appointed by the House to no longer have to be a member of the House, which means that they could be members or they could not be, which is a change in practice from when these statutes were first put in law. I have no clue if there's any plans to deviate from that past practice as soon as this becomes effective, or whether it was simply flexibility that was desired. This was something that was kind of in the budget that I think people found later in the process, but it did ultimately end up in the final enacted budget. And Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It's only House members.
Madam Chair, Ms. Hines, yes, that was something we did notice. At first, we thought it applied to both House and Senate appointees. However, Senate appointees still must be members of the Senate, where now, starting on July 1, House appointees do not have to be members. And there's unique things that could happen from that. So by being required to be a legislative member, you ensure some amount of geographic diversity, because 2 House members can't be from the same district. However, 2 citizens appointed by the House could be from the same district. And so just be interesting to see, how this plays out moving forward. But again, the Speaker has this appointment authority. He retains that authority. The only difference now is the people that are eligible for appointment don't have to be elected members of the House of Delegates.
Other questions? Do you want to just give a very quick update on 81, the public hearings that are taking place?
Yes, and so we did, when we were in Marion, we did talk about how we were kicking off the Senate Bill 971 study. We talked with you all about how we were going to be hosting 3 sets of public meetings in 4 different locations along the corridor. I did want to let you know that in the previous 2 weeks, we completed our first 4 public meetings. Mr. Whitworth was at 2 of those. Mr. Rosen was at the one, and I know, unfortunately, Mr. Stinson was trying to make it there, but we had some scheduling difficulties. I want to say we had over 350 attendees at these 4 meetings, and I know you all have been to a host of public meetings over the past however many years you've been on the board. I dare say it's very rare when we are not talking about buying right-of-way or the specific design of a project that we get that amount of attendance in a room. I believe the first meeting we had in the Stanton district, we had about 40 people standing in the back of the room because the crowd was that much larger than I think what folks had anticipated. So we're seeing a real amount of enthusiasm and interest from the residents, businesses, and elected officials along that corridor. So I think it's a really positive sign as we start to move forward with that. Also on the website, VA I-81 corridor, we have posted boards that were used in these meetings to show the top problem areas from a safety, congestion, and resiliency standpoint along the entire corridor there, and we're still soliciting public feedback and input on those for the next few weeks. Our second meeting, as I mentioned, was going to be in August when we go back out with recommended solutions, and hopefully we can sustain this level of public engagement in this study as we move forward.
Secretary, remind me again, we have to get this done by the next General Assembly session, right?
Madam Chair, Mr. Connors, we are required to, this board is required to provide a recommended plan to the General Assembly by at least its first day of the 2019 General Assembly session.
I mean, we're looking at all modes of transportation, right?
Sure.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Whitworth, anything that you'd like to add?
Well, certainly it is a subject of great concern as we've seen. We had 220-some people in the Stanton district in 2 meetings. And I would tell you that it was an engaging public, not a confrontational public. So they will be looking to the next meeting, which I believe is scheduled in either late August or early September, where we then will be presenting the specifics of how we may address rectifying some of the hot spots. That will probably get even more interesting because everybody feels they have a hot spot, but we can't do it all. And we'll need to defend and advocate for the ones that we can afford and do first.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Donohue.
You?
Let's see, Ms. Mitchell, is there anything that you'd like to?
Just one
add from
follow-up
yesterday?
item from the WMATA discussion yesterday. At your seat, we did hand out copies of the proposed WMATA bylaws that we discussed yesterday. I do want to point out one section that was, I think, the topic of some questions, particularly related to committees, and it does clarify that the membership of committees would be limited to directors, but it does also clarify that in the last section of Section 3A, that staff members, members of advisory bodies, consultants, alternate directors, and other parties may be invited to make presentations at committee meetings or participate in committee discussions. I did want to point out that just by having that term in there of advisory bodies does open up the possibility for alternates that may be engaged, may be able to be engaged in another group such as a task force or some other organization within the WMATA, doing work with the WMATA board to still be able to participate within committee meetings too. So,
Did want to make sure that you all had that in your packet. And then Commissioner, I know you would, you mind just giving that flooding update?
We're going to queue up a quick slide presentation just to be able to show you what we have, if I can get that. Just so everyone's aware that I do have a slide deck that's less than 50 slides today for you.
I was going to ask.
It's the abridged version. It's the abridged version. So just a quick update, as you know, that May and June have been very wet months for us here in Central Virginia. We had two significant events. May 14th through the 31st, we saw a maximum rainfall event of approximately 14 inches centered around downtown Richmond, Hanover. And then again, June 1st through the 3rd, another 8.5 inches plus that really has already saturated already wet grounds. So during the weather events, we had a series of flash floods, high winds, and thunderstorms that brought down trees. We had prolonged flooding on our major rivers and streams. At the height of it, we had more than 250 roads closed, and we still have about 50 roads that are impacted that had washouts and debris and other things that have happened. So we had 22 localities or counties that were impacted. By far the most impacted were Hanover and Greene County, and the Culpeper and Richmond and Salem districts all felt the effects of it. What we're estimating is about $6 million in damage across predominantly in Hanover and Greene counties that are going to require repairs. We do have contract forces out there that are working to restore those roads to emergency vehicles. Where we cannot reopen the bridges, we do have detours in place to be able to get them around. We do have temporary repairs associated with it. In other words, the approach work is being done until we can get the permanent repairs put into place. We are working with Department of Emergency Management to secure federal funds for reimbursement for that $6 million at this moment. So I wanted to give you a couple pictures just to be able to walk away with. If we didn't have enough bridges and pavements yesterday, this should give you the fix. This is in Greene County, again, a washout. The bridge is still in place, but we're going to need to do repair work to the approaches. Look better on paper, but this is a mudslide on Route 33 where we're cleaning that slope and restoring that facility back to traffic. Madison, you may have heard about 2 missing people that were swept away due to floodwaters. And then finally, a picture of Route 54 here in Hanover County, or up in Hanover County. As of yesterday, we still have 19 roads closed, predominantly 17 of which are secondary roads, but we still have Route 54 here closed to traffic, as well as Route 30 in the Commonwealth. So we're still working to restore the facilities, but wanted to give you a quick update that we're dwindling from the 250 roads that were impacted down to 19 as of yesterday.
Mr. Brown.
Whether there was any unique circumstances about this rain event or the structure of the roads that caused it to be so catastrophic? I mean, was it just the amount of rain over the period, or was there anything else that we are kind of able to root cause as to why some of these roads failed?
One, I think we had a wet spring to begin with, so the rivers were already full. We already had a very saturated ground, and they could not just, the permeability of the soil just would not absorb the amount of rain that we had. The intensity of the rainfall, I will say that we had very intense rainfalls in isolated localities that caused a lot of rain to fall in a short period of time, and was captured, and frankly, already swollen rivers just exceeded their banks.
Thank you. We will get updates from technology and rail at our next meeting. Is there any?
One quick announcement?
Yes.
Two quick announcements. Many of you may be aware, but on Monday, the 25th, we are going to be having the ribbon cutting for the Pulse BRT project here in Richmond. We're very excited about that. I do want to extend a special thanks to VDOT, Garrett, and his team who have been leading the design-build contract on that. But big project for Richmond. We're really excited about it, and I hope that you all will be able to attend. We are also on Thursday, the 28th, having a ribbon cutting for the Staples Mill parking lot. This is a project we've been working on. It's actually being delivered about 6 weeks ahead of schedule. Again, I want to extend thanks to VDOT, who's been leading the construction work on that. Staples Mill is the busiest train station in the southeast, and for any of you who have tried to use it during rush hours, the parking lot is very often full. So we're really excited that this will be opening it up, new 588 parking spaces with 2 new entrances, and we'll have it open before the July 4th travel season. So that's all my announcements for now.
Secretary, one quick announcement. Quentin Elliott was taken ill today, or he would have been here, but I want to express our sincere appreciation on behalf of Greg and Mary and Dixon here on working with me and Quentin and staff to produce the Commonwealth Transportation Board Handbook, which is at your table. I think this will be a good kickoff for our new members. We didn't let perfect stand in the way of the good. This is good, and it's going to be perfected as we move forward and fine-tune it. But Quentin, wherever you are, if you're watching, great job. Thank you.
Life and soul into it.
He did. He really did.
Thank you. I will just close with the fact that, just wanting to make sure you all know all the great people that we have working here. But I saw Michael May walk into the office. Michael's been working over in the Patrick Henry with transportation, and he's only with us for about another month or so. He is going to be heading to law school. And Michael, have you made a final decision? So in Austin, University of Texas, going to law school. So anyway, he's been a pleasure. And there's a Governor's Fellows program, and we have a young woman who is our Governor Fellow in Transportation, Lauren Fishbein, who's going to be with us until, how long are you with us? Middle of August. And you just cannot believe how exciting it is, can you? I will say she left a CTB prep meeting, and do you want to share what you said to me? There are a lot of big personalities here. And so with that, we adjourn. Thank you all very much. Safe travels. And thank you again, Mr. Gorzinski.
Anyway.
All right.
See you next month. Hard all the time trying to get